In this video, I will work through the practice problems for the Mat 56 final exam Form A. The first problem we have is shown. Using properties of exponent, we'll simplify this problem. We will start by working inside of the parentheses first. So 5 divided by 3 cannot be simplified, so we will write it as 5 over 3. Since the a is in the numerator and there is an a in the denominator, and therefore the bases are the same, so we have a to the third power minus the denominator power, which is negative 5. Since there's a b in the numerator, b in the denominator, we have same base, so that's b to the numerator power minus the denominator power. And then we have quantity to the minus 3 power. Still simplifying inside of parentheses, we have 5 to the third. The two negatives here becomes positive. So that gives me a to the 8th power, b to the negative 4 power, and everything to the negative 3 power. Now keep in mind that the 5 has its own power of a 1 and the 3 have a power of a 1. Since there is nothing inside of the parentheses to simplify, I am now going to distribute the power on the outside to all powers on the inside. So finally, by doing this, I have 5 to the negative 3 power divided by 3 to the negative 3 power, a to the negative 24 power, and b to the positive 12 power. And keep in mind a to the negative 24 is the same as over 1, and b to the 12 is the same as over 1. Now using properties of exponent once again, we know that if the power is negative in the numerator, by bringing it to the denominator, bringing the negative power to the denominator, we have 5. Since the power was negative in the numerator, bringing it to the denominator becomes a positive 3. The 3 has a negative power in the denominator, so taking it to the numerator, the power becomes positive. A is in the numerator, it has a negative power, bringing it to the denominator makes it positive. B has a positive power, so it stays where it is. And our final simplification of this, 3 to the third is 27, b to the 12 over 5 to the third is 1/25, a to the 24th power. And this is our final answer for part A. If we look at part B of this problem, once again we have parentheses, but there's nothing to simplify in the parentheses. So we'll distribute the outer power to all of the power inside of the parentheses. Keep in mind the 1 has a power of 1, the 2 has a power of a 1. So by distributing the powers, this becomes 1 to the power of negative 4 divided by 2 to the power of negative 4. And using properties once again, very similar to part A, by switching from the numerator to the denominator, the powers changes sign. So 2 becomes positive 4 if I take it to the numerator, and 1 becomes a positive 4. And 2 to the 4th is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and 1 to the 4th is 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, which is 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So we have 16 over 1, which is equal to 16. And this is the final answer for part B. For part C, notice we have parentheses, but there's nothing inside of the first parentheses to be simplified. So nothing in this parentheses to be simplified. There is nothing in the second parentheses to be simplified. However, we do have a power that we can distribute to the inside. So the first parenthesis stays the same, which is x squared y to the minus 3. And the second parenthesis becomes x to the negative 25, y to the negative 5. Now we don't have anything inside either parentheses to simplify. So now we multiply the two parentheses because it's understood there is a multiplication there. And we know when we multiply, if the bases are the same, when the bases are the same, we add the power. So we have x to the second power plus a negative 25 power. And we also have the y bases are the same. So that becomes y to the negative 3 power plus a negative 5 power. Simplifying, the plus and the minus becomes a minus. The plus and the minus here becomes a minus. So here we have x to the negative 23 power, y to the negative 8 power. Applying the rules implies this is a fraction is the same over 1. So if we use the same rule, if it's the negative power in the numerator, by bringing it to the denominator makes it positive. The y has a negative power, it is in the numerator, bring it to the denominator makes it positive, and there's a 1 coefficient in the numerator. And this is our result for part C. In part D, similar process. We look at the inside of the parentheses. Since there is nothing on the inside of the parentheses, we distribute the outer power. Keep in mind once again the coefficient 2 has a power of a 1. So distributing the outer power, which is a 2, to all of the power on the inside. In the numerator that becomes 2 to the second power, x to the 14 power, y to the negative 2 power. Divided by, similarly, in the denominator, the 7 has a 1 power. So if we and the y has a 1 power. So if we distribute that power to all of the powers on the inside, that gives 7 to the negative 1 power, x to the third power, and y, x to the minus third power, and y to the minus 1 power. We cannot simplify the coefficient with a negative power. So the first thing I will do, I can simplify 2 to the second, which is 4. However, 7 to the negative 1 will come up to the numerator, and it becomes 7 to the first power. Since the bases are the same for x, we have x to the 14 power minus the denominator power, which is negative 3. And we have y to the minus 2 power minus the denominator power, which is minus 1. Simplifying this portion here, that becomes 7 to the first power, just 7. So this is 28. We have x. The two negatives here become positive. So that is x to the 17 power. The two signs for the y becomes positive. So that gives me y to the negative 1 power. Now, as a fraction, this is over 1. And then we compare the exponents once again. So the 28 has a power positive, so it stays. X has a power positive, it stays where it is. Y has a negative power, it's in the numerator. So by bringing it to the denominator, it becomes y to the 1. And we generally don't write y to the 1, we just write y. It's understood that the power is 1. So we have 28x to the 17th power over y, and that is our answer for part D. In part E, simplify inside the parentheses first. Once again, we don't have anything inside the parentheses, so we'll distribute the outside power. Keep in mind that everything has a power of 1 if there is no power. So distributing, here we have negative 5 raised to the negative 3 power. However, we cannot simplify any number with a negative power, so we must change that to a positive power. So here we have 1 over 5 to the third, and negative stays out there. So we have negative 1 over 5 times 5 times 5, which is negative 1 over 125. And this is our answer for part E.